So I'm going to go ahead and get started.
Start away.
Introduce us. So, hey everybody, welcome. Thanks for joining. My name is Snow White, and I am our Student Programs Coordinator for the Study Abroad office. I am going to be moderating the chat today, so if you all do have any questions, I'm going to do my best to answer what I can in the chat. If I can't answer it, I will just flag it, and then we'll get to questions at the very end. So I'll kind of moderate this and let Jim know what other questions are going on that we need some extra help on. Please just try to stay on mute throughout this. I know we have a lot of people, a couple joining in via phone call as well. So if you're on the phone, just make sure you're unmuted. So we're not hearing any conversations. And if you don't have access to the chat for any reason, you might not be in the actual Teams group. So you might need to log back out of this video call, go back to your email, and the first step with the instructions should be how to join the group. So if you have any trouble accessing the chat or anything like that, try leaving and coming back in that way. Then you should be able to access the chat. And then please just leave us chats, comments, questions, whatever you might have throughout this. And like I said, I'll try to get to whatever I can. And then if not, I'll have Jim address them at the end. So Jim, with that, I will leave it to you. And thank you to our faculty members for being here as well. And I'm excited.
Thank you. And I'm so glad. Thank you, Snow, for all of the technical support and setting all this up. And I'm really so pleased we have this wonderful turnout. One thing I do want to mention, though, a few things I want to mention before we advance into the actual presentation. We are going to record this. So if you think you heard an answer to your question and maybe you just wanted some more detail, it's going to be coming out to you, but we're happy to answer if we can here. I will try to leave some time at the end so we can do some interactive questions, either through the chat or if we can do it through the audio. But there's a lot of information to cover. There are going to be some items and some times where, as I say, a lot of these orientations, this is all in print form for you through the PowerPoint. But my aim is not just to demonstrate that we know we all can read the English language and that you can cover all this yourself. My desire is that we get into the nitty-gritty detail of things because everyone has or will have completed the online pre-departure orientation and quiz through our office. And then we're having this orientation. Some of our program directors are having their own orientations, and there will be orientation when you get on site in Florence. But by way of some quick introductions, so you know, we have some of our faculty here, Dr. Randy Otto, who is teaching forensic psychology, Dr. David Merkler, who's teaching our introductory biochemistry. And maybe you can't see everyone on the screens and all, but it looks like now Dr. Kirpal Bisht, who's teaching Organic Chemistry 1. And I know earlier Dr. Kimberly Fields, who's teaching Organic Chemistry 2. So I apologize if I've left out some. I really apologize. Maybe some of our other faculty, and I'm only seeing the dot that says we have 80 people. We can start actually by that and say our total group continues to grow, not for the first 6-week session, but we're at 101 people for the whole summer. The sessions, and I'll make reference to this and try to repeat this as often as I can for clarity. When we talk about the program, it's in 2 6-week sessions, and some people are actually doing the 12-week session, which is called the C session. But belonging to the first 6 weeks is session A, the Florence Business Program, and then whoever is starting in the C session, that first part. And the second 6 weeks is comprised of the B session, the Science Program, and the Psychology, Social Behavioral Science Program, plus anyone who's from the C session doing both. So we'll just kind of have that as an easy reference. The other easy reference is the school that you're attending, our Foreign Host Institute, their full long name and acronym is the Florence University of the Arts, the American University of Florence, FUA-AUF. So when you see that referenced in emails, or you hear sometimes our friends in Florence say FUA AUF, that's what they're talking about. But I think for simplicity, I'll just say FUA or FUA, which is I think the easiest way to reference them. So regrettably, the first thing I need to start with is a little housekeeping. So Snow, if you don't mind advancing the slide, just a few things to mention, which are questions that frequently come up but do need to be covered. Can you change our slide, Snow? There it goes. A few things. First thing I want to mention, by the way, I'm going to be doing a little bit of this out of order because it just flows more naturally, but for purposes of the written print on the on the actual PowerPoint, I kind of put some things out sporadically in a certain order. All of you, we desperately need to go in and have complete as much of your application with our office, as much of the questionnaires as you can. Since everyone here is in the committed stage, you will see some post-decision questions that have opened up. Please address as many of those as you can. They're also going to spark some things of real importance, like ask you for your passport copy, and that'll be a good reminder if you don't have a passport to apply for one. But it's also going to have one particularly important question, and you'll get notices about these, and it's going to ask you for your contact information while abroad. And I'm going to address some of that with respect to communication when we get there. But one thing is it's going to say, tell us about your physical address. And I don't know them yet. Very soon I will know them for the A session, but as much of the rest of it as you can fill out, and maybe some of that you'll need to do after this orientation when we talk about items, please fill out all of that. Very important. As you're registering with Florence University of the Arts, most of you have been receiving your official registration from them. And then you receive it from me as a confirmation where I ask you to please make sure everything looks in order. You don't necessarily have to respond to that, just make sure it's in order. And of course, if you see some anomaly, write me with questions. But it is our office, the Education Abroad office, is going to physically register you in OASIS. So the biggest takeaway from the slide is, do not try to register yourself in OASIS, because it won't be our class, because our classes are blocked, only we can do the registration. It will not be our class. So as an example, you see beginning Italian 1. You're probably not registering for the one in Florence. In fact, I'm sure you're not. You're going to be registering for one on campus, and the campus mechanism is going to go into play. And that means we will not probably be able to withdraw you from that and then come on late registration charges and drop from classes, and it compromises financial aid. So the simple thing to remember is, in the course of our actions, our office will register you for your classes in OASIS. If you don't see them popping up, you will shortly, because my colleagues in our academic services unit are registering people as we speak. Okay, can you advance for us, please, Snow? I do need to remind everyone, so we see up here the grading and academic issues. I do need to remind everyone, these are regular enrolled direct credit classes, just as you would take any other class here on campus. So all of these are going into your GPA, the same grading rules apply, and this will be factored in as if you're taking any other summer class. By the way, any summer class not associated with Florence, you need to register yourself, because that's outside of the program. We're only doing the Florence registrations. One thing I'll mention, and I'll mention it again as we get to the arrival, is people have been asking, can I drop and add classes? So for the 8th session, no. Right now the classes are locked. There'll be one opportunity to make a change to your registration, and it will be following your arrival. The next day is this is going to make sense. We'll map it out carefully in a little while. Following your check-in day and arrival, the next day will be orientation, and you'll have till 5:30 that evening to actually make a course change, and you'll only be allowed one change. But I encourage you, if you're thinking about changing classes or might change classes, have some alternates in mind and have them approved by your academic advisor. Because the worst thing that could happen is we have a few hours left to go, and you say, for some reason I want to change from this class to this one or this time to this one, and we don't know if the class has been approved, because we'll only be allowed that one time to change. Okay, Snow, please advance, and we are going to go through this and we're going to come back for questions. So, can you hit the next slide there you are. We've had some of these slides up, and I'll let you just read through them, and we'll advance through them quickly. But as part of any good pre-departure, and you probably saw this when you did the general online orientation and quiz, as part of any good pre-departure preparation for a study abroad program, or I think a trip anywhere, I think it's very good to go armed with a lot of knowledge as much as possible about the country and the culture that you're visiting. So I have this slide up just to remind, and you'll be getting it electronically. Click on some of these things, look at the culture grams. Even if you want, begin to learn a little bit of the foreign language. I always say the best thing we can learn is how to be polite and then survival things in a foreign language. So you want to be able to say buongiorno, to say excuse me, say scusate, or if you wanted to say survival things, where is the, dove la stazione di treno, where is the train station, where is the, excuse me, bathroom, things you might say, this I need to know to survive. But these are very good websites. And I think the next slide too, also, we've talked a little bit about some of this, but really important, I think you will find, and here as an aside, you will find that Florence, which is ranked as one of the most beautiful cities and favorite cities to travel on the earth, and that's not an exaggeration, it may be a subjective observation, but in truth, it always ranks in the top 5 places in the world to visit. Hence, they have a lot of tourists, and hence they have a lot of people who speak English. So if you're studying Italian and you don't immediately have an authentic accent, you do have to stretch a little to say, in Italiano, per favore, in Italian, please, so that they speak to you in Italian, because if they don't hear immediately, they'll speak in English. So the good thing is you're never going to feel like you're totally lost because someone will speak English. The bad thing is if you want to practice your Italian and it isn't letter perfect, they may start speaking to you in English. But it is a beautiful, well-touristed city. I, though, really, really recommend you learn as much about the city as you can. And this next slide, like we do, staying informed. 2 things to remember about this. We have our International Risk Security Office, and we work in very close concert with the Student Life Office at FUA, Florence University of the Arts. Any important warning or information, this could be as obscure as there is a forest fire, or anyone who is trying to plan a travel needs to be conscious of this, you will get notifications from us. So we should say, as a general rule, from now until the end of the program, the end of your program, absolutely continuously monitor your email, because we'll be sending out information. We'll be sending them out multiple times. I'm sure many of you are sick of going, it's Jim again. I've already answered this. He puts continuing notice. But it's in an effort to make sure we keep you informed, and then we sometimes have to write to you specifically. But I think it's good for you to keep yourself apprised of things. This is a slide we've had forever. It has nothing specifically to do with the COVID-19 crisis, but it's always important to think about your surroundings, and we'll talk about that with safety. But also remember that you will be receiving messages from our office and the Student Life Office at FUA if anything were an immediate alert we needed to give you. Can you hit our next slide, Snow? This is all very general housekeeping. Now, this I'm going to make a prefacing statement. Throughout this orientation, I will continuously refer to items that I want you to print out and have on your person, items I want you to leave with you at home. Think about leaving something like a manila envelope, a file folder. These are things I'm going to leave copies of at home and things I'm going to take copies with me. First thing, absolutely passport. We're talking about the inside page of your passport. With your photo and your signature, make a nice clear copy or photo of it. Leave one at home, take several with you. And the reason is we have a much better chance of replacing a lost, stolen, or damaged passport if there's a copy. Most of you by now have uploaded it to our office on your application. We share those with Florence University of the Arts. So there is one in our system, there's one in the FUA system, there's one you've left at home on the kitchen table in a manila envelope, and you have several copies with you. If anything were to happen to your passport, anytime, day or night, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, someone can be reached that has a copy of your passport. That is a travel thing to remember for the rest of your life. Again, I'm not always a huge fan of technology, but when people say I have them on my phone or they're on my laptop, let's not assume the technology is going to serve us well all the time. Phone battery dies, internet connectivity is gone. My desire is that there's passport copies all over the place. And then for some safety issues too, we'll talk about when you're walking around, not carrying your passport all the time, but always having a copy, always a clear color copy. The same thing would apply with visas. There are a few students that need a foreign visa. If you are a U.S. citizen carrying a U.S. passport for this length of stay, you do not need to have a visa. We have a couple of non-U.S. citizens, and we're working with them on visas. The same thing would apply. Copy of your passports left at home and taken with you, and added to our application, as well as when you receive your visa. Okay, can we advance onto that? By the way, print them in color because they're much more readily viewable that way. Okay, now we have to do some real important, this is more than housekeeping. This is when I say I'm doing this, not in real time, of course, but physically, I want to get you from where you're sitting now, at this moment. I want to get you into your apartment in Italy. So that's my mission now. That's what I want to remember. A lot of this part of getting to Florence, I'll repeat somewhat quickly, but you've seen this in the emails we've been sending about getting airline tickets. You've seen this in there. But it is critical, and we are monitoring this with our Risk and Security Office for any changes. As of this date, there are no changes. So, what we want everyone to do, unquestionably, without fail, direct COVID-tested international flight. You must book. New York City, New York JFK, by the way, not LaGuardia, New York JFK, Newark Liberty, Atlanta Hartsfield. And you fly directly into Rome Fiumicino. Fiumicino, by the way, is the actual town it's in. It's outside of Rome. That'll be a little more relevant when we talk about the next stage of getting there. But to be clear, you'll need to book and even ask the airline if it does not come up immediately on the browser you're searching for the airline ticket from, or on the airline's website if you're booking directly through the airline. Make sure you speak to someone and say, am I on a COVID-tested flight internationally? So we're talking about leaving New York or leaving Newark Liberty or leaving Atlanta. No stops, arriving in Rome Fiumicino. That's what you need to seek out. Also, these flights are going to indicate that you need a negative COVID-19 test. So what this is where they have the antigen test that you're going to take. You must take this 48 hours prior to your departure and have proof of that. So the theory is this, so you get some more context and it makes sense. You've taken the COVID test. It comes up negative 48 hours before your flight. Everybody on that flight going internationally, so you can connect domestically, Tampa to New York, to Rome, Orlando, Atlanta, Rome. You can guarantee everyone on that flight has provided proof of a negative test within 48 hours, and therefore everyone in that entire aircraft at that moment is COVID-free. So the likelihood that anyone's going to land, say, 8 or 8.5 hours later in Rome and going to test positive is extremely low. Extremely low. Because the next step of what's going to happen is, when you arrive in Rome, you will be tested again by the local Italian health ministry and the authorities. You're going to be very clearly ushered into lines. They're going to say, this flight got out, you cleared customs, they've stamped passports, whatever they instruct you to do, and you're going to go into that line. And they're going to see that you tested negative, but they will likely test you immediately again with a rapid test. That comes out negative, which it should. You will be allowed to go freely and to your final destination. If you're on any other flight, and here's the danger, if you're on any other flight, it doesn't matter. They will not be testing you when you arrive in Italy. They will not test you. So the law says you must self-isolate now for a period of 14 days. So even if they said, I don't know if you're COVID-free, I don't know, you've had injections, you've had all the vaccines, it doesn't matter. They will force you to self-isolate, and that will be at your expense. Of course, in the unlikely event you do test negative, even if you're on a COVID flight, you'll have to self-isolate. But that's a very low percentage that's going to happen if you've taken the COVID negative test 48 hours before. It is advisable, and it's coming out to everyone through many, many sources at USF and USF Health, that you be vaccinated. I always add in the phrase, I believe everyone should be consulting with their primary healthcare provider or with a healthcare professional. If you're a candidate for the vaccine, be vaccinated before you go. and make absolutely sure you bring your proof of vaccination with you, and all but staple it to your passport. Don't staple it to your passport, but it should become part of your travel documents. Leave copies of those at home. I would take extra copies with you, but bring the original. And that may have a resultant effect as things are opening up and travel is restrictions are lessening now in Italy. It may be required that they say if you have proof of COVID vaccines, you're allowed to do some freer travel. So we can't promise that, but those are the indications of the direction it's going with the Italian health ministry. So the other parts we have are things that bringing surgical face masks for the entire flight. They suggest every 4 hours you have one to replace, and whatever airline baggage instructions. I recommend contacting the airline and just seeing what they're recommending you have with you, but I would not go without the face masks and anticipate that they're going to have them for you. I would bring your own and your own hand sanitizers and be extremely, extremely vigilant before you go. But if you're vaccinated, bring your proof. So to recap quickly, you may have a connecting flight within the United States, but New York City JFK, Newark Liberty, or Atlanta Hartsfield, you take a direct COVID tested flight. You confirm that with the airline if it isn't prominently on their website. You'll be tested 48 hours prior, and you'll have your proof of the negative test. And by the way, those can be, I'd Google for your area. I believe CVS is doing some, certain healthcare professionals, different sites are. So Google in your area for where they're providing that. And make sure you absolutely tell them, I'm taking a flight. I need to provide proof of the negative antigen so that you're getting the right test. You bring that documentation with you. If you've been vaccinated, you bring your proof of vaccination with you. You have all of your travel documents, your passport, everything with you, plus many things I'm going to refer to that you have printed out and with you in color that you'll need for immigration. You board that flight. You arrive in Rome. You'll be tested again. Should come out negative, and you'll be allowed to proceed on to Florence. If for any reason you're outside of those guidelines or parameters, or if you're on a COVID tested flight and for some reason we're tested negative, we'll be able to assist you and we'll talk about safety and everything and how to contact whom. But you will be forced to self-isolate at your own cost. Our office, by the way, is scanning everyone's itinerary. When we find a guideline, but of course we're depending on you to give us your itinerary. When we find a guideline that is not being followed, we write to you immediately. So I repeat again, check your email continuously. Anything related to Florence, open it up immediately. Okay, can you advance for us the slide? And we'll go on to a little bit more about getting to Florence, and then we'll get on to some other things. Okay, this I think we talked about, except for this next step. So now you're all in Florence. I'm sorry, now you're all in Rome. We have to get to Florence. I provided you, and I will provide you again before you depart, the step-by-step instructions that are printed on USF letterhead and have my electronic signature. You must print those out in color and have them with you. That's going to serve as your proof of step-by-step instructions, and that's how it's been described by the immigration authorities. Every student must have issued from their home institute their director's step-by-step instructions printed on stationery. They mean letterhead by the university. So make sure you print those out. Again, when we send you documents, we'll follow up with an email that says all of this should be printed and on your person. I'd also suggest leaving those at home. I think it's just a good idea if family members know step-by-step literally everything that you're doing. I'm going to the airport at this time. I'm taking a train. My train is at this point. So we've been released by the authorities and the health ministry at the airport in Rome, and now we have to get to Florence. So you're responsible for the cost of the train ticket. But when you look at that, the first thing that you need to remember is Florence, of course, is not how the Italians say Florence. They say Firenze. And then you'll always see for these train departures SMN, which will be in parentheses after Firenze. and stands for Santa Maria Novella, which is the principal central train station. Florence has one that's a little bit north of there. And if somehow you ended up there, it's not the end of the world. It's about 5 minutes north. You just are dragging your bags. You'd have to take another train back. It's extremely inconvenient after you've done a long journey. But in the airport in Rome, they have 2 daily train departures, only 2 daily, which may coincide with your arrival. And those will not require you to change trains. They will go directly from the airport through the train station in Rome and then go on nonstop into Florence. If you are not able to make either of those departures of the train, which is directly in the Rome airport now, you're not going anywhere. There is, and maybe if you advance, no, I think I have it up on there too. The next slide. There, it's one of these, but you can read all of these. I'm going to talk you through it. There is what is called the Leonardo Express. When I said the Rome airport is called Fiumicino, that's actually the code for it, because it's actually in the town of Fiumicino, about 45 minutes outside of Rome. But the airports in Italy have all been given names after famous Italians. Rome is now Leonardo da Vinci. So they've aptly named this little train that connects the airport with the main train station in Rome, the Leonardo Express. The main train station in Rome, in the north part of the city, Rome's a huge city, it's called Termini, Termini, and that's in the next slides too. But if you're not in one of the flights and your flight arrival time does not coincide with one of the direct trains that goes from Rome Airport to Florence without a change, you'll need to do the Leonardo Express, which is another 45-minute trip. Train, as we put here, 6:38 a.m. The last one is 11:38. They shut down for like about a short amount of time. Otherwise, whenever your plane arrives, you'll be able to take this train into Rome. And I believe it's about 14 euros what we put down. Yeah, 14 euros for that train ticket. And then from there, you'll need to buy a ticket from Rome into Florence. And remember, you're looking for Roma Termini, which is where you'll be at that point, and it'll say Firenze SMN for Santa Maria Novella. Now, thank you. I think that's what I wanted you to do is change that. You'll see a few websites I put up here, www.trenitalia.com, but you can always ask people who are in the train station in Rome. The train station in Rome, Roma Termini, is enormous. It's a lot of hustle and bustle. Probably won't be as much because, again, travel is a little bit suppressed than when it usually is. But the key that I want you to remember about this, one is you do not want to take any any train that is longer than an hour 40 minutes. So please remember that. We have 1 hour 40. You'll find them listed as 93 minutes, 98 minutes. Sometimes they'll do it that way. Never should be more than around an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes. And where we've put on there, they're the high-speed trains. Sometimes they'll list them as what you see there. I'll just pronounce for you, Freccia Rosa, Freccia Argento. So the Express Red or the Express Silver. But you want a train travel time of around an hour 40 minutes. Any of the other ones, and you'll see them for a little bit of a discount, they're commuter trains. So that's for locals who say, I live 3 or 4 towns from Rome, and I take the train, and I don't want to take the high-speed one because it doesn't stop here. Well, you'll be stopping every small town, and you'll see travel times between Rome and Florence. It'll be 4 hours, 5 hours, 6.5 hours. Never get one of those. The direct train, the high-speed train, an hour and a half, somewhere in that area is what you want. That's the only train you'd want to take. As far as purchasing the tickets, some people have asked me through email, should I get them ahead of time? You know, if you book a ticket ahead of time, make sure you've given yourself several hours after the arrival of your flight in Rome. And the reason I say that is you're going to have to clear customs. I have no idea how many planes will be arriving in Rome that need to go through the COVID testing lines. I don't know how long that'll take. And then you have a 45-minute to an hour trip between the Rome airport and the train station in Rome, unless you're lucky enough that you have those direct trains. They're 2 a day that leave right from the airport. So I'd give yourself a lot of time. You should have no trouble being able to buy a ticket when you arrive in Rome. You've cleared customs, you've done the COVID testing, you're free to go, they tell you essentially. And in the airport, it's clearly marked, the Leonardo Express this way, plus scores upon scores of people in the airport who speak English. They'll direct you, you'll pay for a 14-euro ticket, you'll go to the Roma Termini station, and you will look for only a ticket that is around an hour and a half, hour and 40 minutes, direct from Rome to Florence, Firenze, Santa Maria Novella. Make sure that's your stop. That, I think, yeah, maybe the last bullet point there is still on this one. When you arrive at the train station in Florence, we're going to tell you in advance the check-in site where you'll be checking in. Now, when we look at Florence, so I'm going to keep making detours in my presentation, historical Florence, what the Florentines called the Centro Storico, Florence that was familiar to Michelangelo Buonarroti, Leonardo da Vinci, Galileo Galilei, Raffaello, Machiavelli, all the Florence they knew is where you're living. So that's an incredibly, incredibly special and life-changing experience. It also isn't very big. All of Florence, and I've never done a direct map overlay in Google or anything, but you can think of all of historical Florence as being about the size of the Tampa campus. So after you're there for 48 hours and you know your way around, you might be a little bothered at the fact that I just am going to tell you that when you arrive at the train station in Florence, I highly suggest you take a cab from the train station to the check-in site. Because after you're there for 48 hours, you say, why did Jim tell us that? I can walk there in 10 minutes. Well, you're going to have your bags, you're going to have a little handy map or maybe some Google Maps on your phone or something, but you may also be very tired. So for official sake, I've said I suggest taking a train. If you feel adventuresome, for example, I can walk from the train station, knowing my way and knowing back streets, because I've been a number of times, I can make it there in 15 minutes. But you may be better advised to take a cab when you first arrive, and you'll be tired. That cab ride, of course, and we're going to talk about money, I'm guessing approximately 15 euro or something. So maybe think about sharing cabs for those of you who are flying in groups. Okay, can you go to our next slide, Snow? So here's going to be a thing I'm going to repeat constantly, and you're going to have it in several forms when it's given to you. Very specifically, any travel interruption, any delay, anything that we need to be notified of, anything that's going to cause you to not be able to check in on the arrival date at the official check-in site that we will be sending to you between the hours of 9 a.m. and 7 p.m. That's your objective. You have to get to the check-in site at that time. Anything that happens, you would phone the 24/7 emergency phone for Florence, for FUA, or, and most of you know this from the online orientation you've already completed with our office, and if you haven't, please do that as soon as possible. Our office is 24/7 emergency phone. So we'll talk later on about communication and how you're going to be able to do that. But remember that. Keep these numbers handy with you. They're going to be given to you in multiple sources, so you don't have to print this slide. We're going to be giving you emergency cards. I'm going to give you other sheets that have useful numbers. But this is something you want to take and print and have with you on your person and leave at home with family and loved ones so that no matter what happens, you're likely not going to blank on your own home phone number. So you'll always be able to call home and go, Mom, Dad, somewhere in that bag of papers I left you, it says emergency contact number. I need to call them now. Something's happened with my flight. I printed it out like Jim said, but it blew away in the wind. I want information available to everyone everywhere. But calling my office phone number isn't going to do it. Calling the 24/7 emergency phone for USF will. And if I'm not manning the phone directly, they will get in touch with me in seconds. And also have the emergency phone for Florence. So remember the objective, arrival day, you've gone through everything proper to get yourself landed and either take a train directly from the airport or from the train station in Rome to Firenze, Santa Maria Novella, a cab to the check-in site, but you must arrive there between 9 a.m. and 7 p.m. I do have to say, as a policy, we cannot receive anyone after 7 p.m. And if you do need to spend the night in a hotel, We can assist you with finding the hotel, but it is at your expense. So we hope that's not going to happen for anyone. But remember, anything that happens along the way, and you say, somehow my trip's interrupted, someone at customs told me something, someone at the Ministry of Health said something, I'm required to self-isolate, you must contact us and let us know immediately so that we can assist you. Can you go on to the next slide? I'm so used to doing this live, and I want to say any questions, and I know I can't answer. This is a map that is going to be given to you again in another source. But if you look at that, and I believe, can you enlarge it a little, Snow, or does it not enlarge? This is pretty much, it doesn't matter if it doesn't make, this is pretty much the, oh, you can go back into the map. I just wanted to give everyone a sense.
Sorry about
of
that. I don't think I can enlarge it.
No, don't bother enlarging it. Here's what I wanted to say. We're going to tell you one of those dots is where you are going to have class. And one of those dots is going to be where check-in site is going, where your check-in site is going to be. So I want this map also printed out and on your person. I know you think I'm from another era and I don't trust technology at all, but I have been with so many students, and I'd like to say this for you, which I've told some people in other orientations, a little bit about my history. I worked founding the Florence program and have been working with it directly for, I think this is our 17th, going into 18th year, sending students for the semester, sending students for the summer. Some are by far the larger groups. Have worked in a triad consortium where we did this with the University of Florida and Florida International University, and worked setting up the program and have made multiple trips through the years, sometimes several a year. All of that, I beg you, is not meant to sound boastful. I think I've made my 39th trip or so to Florence and stayed a long time. So when I add up all the weeks I've stayed, I go, my gosh, I've put them all together. I've been a couple of years of my life in Florence. But that, I repeat again, I never, ever want to make that sound like a boastful comment. I wanted to punctuate the point that I'm very familiar with this program and what you're going to experience. For all I know, you'll have the same apartment I had 2 summers ago. And I'm aware of every comment that I make having special relevance to something that's happened. So when I say, so please take that as a intended to be delivered. So when I say I don't trust the technology, I've been with students who said, I had no map, I had no emergency phone numbers, my phone died, and then my friend had their tablet, and I thought I put it on my Facebook, I thought I had a file, and somehow they're just wandering through the streets going, I don't even know where to go, I don't know what to call. Yes, people speak English, but what are you supposed to tell them? Where is FUA? Many people say, I don't know what you're talking about. But this is how you will see Florence. And more or less, that's about the size of our campus. So those dots, think about them as being reference points. You'll be living in your apartments, and we're going to talk at length shortly about housing. Your apartments will be mixed into the historic city center, as will our faculty, and think of it as a city campus, not a campus in the sense that we have. You come through the main gate, welcome to the Tampa Campus, the St. Pete Campus, Sarasota Manatee Campus. No. Buildings mixed in throughout historical Florence, but with a complete walking distance from corner to corner of being about maximum 30 minutes when you know where you're going. You know, not the first 48 hours where you're wandering around the same piazza over and over going, I know it's one of these exits and I cannot find it. That goes away in 48 hours. But when you know where you're going, you can walk across all of this in a half an hour. So the distance from your apartment to class might be 5 minutes. Might be in the same building because they have some housing. We're going to talk about housing shortly. And it might even be 15 minutes. But those of us who are used to being at least on the Tampa campus and saying, I parked in the Sun Dome and my first class is over here, are used to walking 15 minutes without any difficulty. And, you know, you don't dare move your car. So I know we're recording it. I don't mean that critically for parking at USF, but, you know, you move your car and you maybe will never see the parking space again. So this is what we're really talking about is a geographic kind of layout. If you look in the upper left-hand corner, when you can get a chance to enlarge it, that larger gray square is the Stazione Centrale, the Termini station. I'm sorry, the Santa Maria Novella station. And so if you walked to one of the check-in sites, you go, yeah, that can probably take me 15 or 20 minutes. Well, Not when you don't know where you're going, it'll take a little longer. So that's why I suggested taking a cab. When you know where you're going, you'll walk from your apartment to the train station in 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 minutes. It'll be nothing. But that's why my suggestion for doing the cab. Can you flip to our next slide, Snow? There we are. So housing. Okay. First thing about housing, to answer your questions. I will not have your apartment addresses. This is even for the upcoming A session students. I'll not have your apartment addresses until about 10 days before you depart. So next week, I'm expecting housing addresses for our first 6-week group. But the B session students, which includes psychology, social behavioral science, and the science program, I won't know your apartment address for weeks and weeks. When you go in and get the reminders, fill out the contact information while abroad. You can't do the apartment. You can click apartment because that's what you're going to have, but we won't know the exact address. When we get them, we'll send them to you and we'll say, please add this to your application and you'll be done. But do go in and fill out all the other things about phones and other methods that we can reach you through, the WhatsApps and so forth. The apartments are private apartments. So they are done through landlords. This picture is a sample of them. I can honestly say I've never stayed in that apartment, but I've seen it before. I think of this, and I know you can read all of this on your own, but I would tell you to consider your apartment to be modest, that we guarantee it'll be very safe, that we would guarantee it will be fully functional, and I'll describe that, and we guarantee it will be within 20 minutes walking distance to any of the sites in there. So it'll be safe, it'll be clean, it'll be fully furnished, and you'll never be outside a radius of reaching any place on, that they have a class in 20 minutes. That's part of our contract. But they are shared apartments, and they are designed to give you a living experience. And what I mean by that is, and I'm not downgrading any other ones. I've done our own programs where I have been in homestays, which are beautiful experiences living with families. I've been in dormitory settings as a student and as a professional overseas. I have done hotels and I have done apartments. So they're all, I never think of negatives. I think they're just all differences. But an apartment and a fully functional apartment in the historic center of town, what we're trying to do, our aim is to give you an immersion living experience in Florence. So I have nothing against a hotel in Florence, but a hotel will make up your bed and do this and do that. And this is your living there. So it gives you a unique opportunity to say, you know, I am having to function like a denizen of Florence. I'm a Florentine. And what better way than your own domicile? So you're all living in Florence. They are shared apartments. So there are double and triple rooms. And it's just sort of how the requests come in as to what they can do best to accommodate. And I'll address some of your requests shortly. But the shared rooms could be, and they do this by a square footage, you know, in a legal lease. The double has to have a certain square meters. They're done in meters, certain number of square meters. And we'll have ample closets or dressers or armoires and things and hangers to put all your stuff on. The triple will have a larger bedroom, and that'll have more square meters and more things to hang things up. But they're all a little different. They're private. They're owned by Florentines, and the Florentines rent them out. So no configuration is identical. But what all of them will have is the shared bedrooms, full kitchen. Every single thing is supplied in your kitchen. Pots, pans, cups, saucers, dishes, knives, spoons, forks, a cheese grater, coffee maker, everything. Everything is there. My joke long has been that you could move into one of these apartments, not need to buy a thing, and pretty much be able to raise a family. Now, if you are a gourmet chef and you say, I need a special kind of garlic press, they may not have that, but they'll have a way to press your garlic if you're interested in doing a lot of cooking. Kitchen, they will have, fully furnished. So keep that in mind now as your accommodations. Keep it in mind when we talk about budget. And really all of this ultimately, because it's all very circular as to how it connects, all of it brings together a complete living experience. So you'll have your shared bedroom, full kitchen, full bath. And what's important to note is when we have, say, 2 doubles, so we have 4 in an apartment, could be 1 bath. When we go to a triple, so now we maybe have a double and a triple room, and we have 5 in an apartment, there will be 2 baths. You will have a living area. In the living area, I can't even begin to tell you how many different ones I've had. I walk in the front door, I have a kitchen here, a little sitting room and library with my TV and all of this, and then a long hallway with my bedroom over this side and a bath on that. I've had other ones where I just have a living area that's a slightly raised step up, like you might see on that staircase there. So they're all different configurations, but the entire room will share the kitchen, the bath, the living area. All the apartments are air conditioned. As far as your question about the temperature, the A-session people probably would hardly ever turn on the air condition. They're cooler mornings and evenings, but nothing cold. And then it gets warmer during the day. You might be turning it on. By the time we get to B session, yeah, it gets warm, and you'll want to turn on your air condition occasionally. Wi-Fi is included. While I'm talking about the Wi-Fi in Florence is not as reliable as you're used to here. So I'd keep that in mind. If you said, I want to download a whole movie, I don't know, the program might be over before the movie. I'm exaggerating, of course, but it is less, there is much less speed. So you just think, I need to do my homework, I need this, give yourself time, internet goes in and out, but it has been perfectly functional and reliable. It just is slower. All of your utilities are included, as long as you are modest in your usage. And what I mean by that is, in Italy doesn't produce electricity. Italy buys electricity, principally from Switzerland. And Switzerland has a number of nuclear plants. They produce electricity. They sell it to other countries. They channel it down to Italy. So electricity is very expensive. One thing to be conscious of is, leaving lights on all day. Obviously, when you're in the apartment and when you're in the space there, of course, anything you want to use. But a habit to get into, and again, this is not a comment on our society or our culture, but it's just something to note. I would be in the habit of turning the lights off. Don't leave the air conditioner on all day. That's very expensive. If you're not in there, I would turn things off. If you are in there, use anything you like. Your utilities are included. It'd be very difficult to overspend. So, basic things about the apartment design. Some of you have requested single rooms, single bedrooms. So I describe those as a single bedroom shared apartment setup. It is not a single apartment. It is your own room. It does cost $487 additional. And that will mean that you have your bedroom. That's yours. You close your door, it's sealed off. No one's supposed to go in unless you want them to. Everything else in the apartment will be shared. But bear in mind, because we get single room requests, that sometimes changes the accommodation shape and size to, we may have 3 bedrooms in a very large apartment with a single room and a triple and a double, and then 2 baths and a larger kitchen, larger living area. So it isn't always you're going to be in an apartment that has 4 people or 5. Could be very different. I'll talk to you about one variation on that, which is a very interesting one that's come up in the last couple of years. So I must say, if you are doing a single room request, they are not guaranteed. Absolutely not guaranteed. Every effort will be made to accommodate any of your requests, which include the single bedroom, as well as include what many of you have already written to me about, which is your roommate preference. Roommate preferences must be put on your FUA application. Roommate preferences must have everyone choosing to room together having the other occupant's name on it. So you want a room with person X, they have to put your name. If there are 3 that want a room together, everyone should have the other people's names on them. Essentially, everyone you want a room with should be on the list except your own name. You're going to be rooming with you. That must be in writing. If it is not in writing, chances are we cannot grant it, because it looks like perhaps so-and-so said they want a room with someone, but so-and-so did not. A couple of good questions came up. Yes, there will be washers, and I was going to get to that, but since I just saw it come up in the chat, you will have washers in the apartments. You will not see a dryer. Italians rarely, and I mean oh so rarely, will ever use a dryer. They don't think it's as good for the clothes, and they do not think it's as healthy as air drying them. So you will have clotheslines and drying racks, and yes, you'll dry your clothes like the Italians outside the window, or on maybe if you have a little balcony, or on the drying rack inside the house. But you will have washing machines. Other things they'll provide in there will be things you may or may not be using, ironing boards, clothes irons, things like that. Question came about, do we still have time? Yes, there is still time to put people on your apartment request if you're in the B session, not the A session. That's closed out. Okay. Snow, could you advance the slide? A couple of really, really, really important apartment rules. The first thing is we cannot have any overnight guests. Can you have guests? Yes. As long as all of your roommates are in agreement. You know, you can say, look, my mom's coming to visit. Can she come over and cook for us? Sure. I'm sure everyone will be delighted. Can my best friend come over? Absolutely. But overnight guests we generally consider after 11:30 p.m. So it's not an attempt to mitigate any kind of other exception to rooming. It's just saying there are some laws in place in Italy, and what could happen is if it was reported by someone else in the building, because you're living with the locals, you know, your apartment might be across the hall from other students, but could be across from the landlady. She may say, this is my building. And I know there are supposed to be 4 or 5 of you in there, but there were 18 people in there last night. And they can get fined for things like that because they have some laws in place that say, you know, we can't lease an apartment to 4 people whose names are on the lease, and we obviously see 16 people living in there, or 10 or 9 or something. It must be who fits the lease. So they have to be very careful about that. So guests are allowed, but generally we say around 11:30, it's time to say goodnight and go back to your own place, or go for a gelato or whatever it is you're doing. So that must be observed at all times. So you can have guests, unless, as I say, some roommate says, look, whoever came over offended me, I don't want them here again. We have to have the occupants in agreement. And then at 11:30, the guests should go home. And if you really want to know, there is an anti-terrorism law in place in Italy, and that's what it's there to prevent. It's someone renting an apartment and saying there's one person on the lease, and then people come in who may or may not be documented and are staying in that apartment, and there can be hefty fines for that for the owner of the place. So for that reason, they're saying, really, please, let's not have any confusion. It has come up in the past, and I've been there where they said, Jim, come over right away. It's 1 a.m. We have an issue by the time I get there. And I say, what's going on? And the police, they say, oh, we have to fine everyone in here. So how much can a fine be? €1,000. They don't live here. And this lady who owns the building, or a gentleman who owns the building, might say, you know, I can't have this because I'm going to get the fine for having people who are on my lease. So it looks like maybe they shouldn't be here. Well, we resolved it, and it was all okay because it was obviously a group of students, and I show up as the administrator, and we went through it. But we want to avoid that occasion, so let's not have overnight guests past 11:30. The other is they have it's a respecting the public quiet law, which I'm sure all of your leases, those of you who have apartments, have seen on your own lease at an apartment complex in Tampa or wherever. And pretty much it says you have a right to peaceful, quiet living. So again, 11:30, it's your apartment. You do anything you wish. You come and go as you please. You cook, anything you like. But after 11:30, the noise level should be kept very low. So extremely low noise level, and you won't have any issues. Doesn't mean you can't talk or chat or suddenly you're thinking, oh my gosh, we better turn the lights out. Absolutely not. But it does mean we need to really be mindful of the noise. And honestly, that's usually the biggest complaint we have. Everyone's having a great time, greatest experience of their life, and absolutely it should be. And it will be. But then they get louder and louder and louder and louder and louder, and the music goes on and on, and before you know it, there's shouting and screaming, and someone calls the police. So we want to avoid that. A couple of good questions. Let me address these that I see coming up here. There are laundromats around town, but you won't necessarily need to use them, but they do have dryers. So that's a good point. There is no need to bring anything, sheets, linens, pillows, Nothing. Everything will be provided for you, including towels, bath towels. Now, if you arrive there and you say, I need more towels, I need more towels, we'll walk you over to a euro 99-cent euro store like our dollar stores, or you can go to a fancy place and buy the most wonderful towels in the world. One thing I recommend, though, is when you get to your apartment, before you buy anything, start opening up the dresser drawers and things like that, because you'll probably find things that other students have left behind. They bought some inexpensive towels, and they said, well, I'm not going to pack a suitcase full of towels to bring home, so I'll leave them for the next person. So you might find little things in there, but just something in there. And a question came up, are the walls thin? The walls are not thin. They're generally incredibly thick, and they're concrete and masonry, and some of them that have been standing there since 1500. But what they do is they can keep the place cool when it's warm, and they can keep it warmer when it's cool. However, they can also transmit noise like a speaker. So you start going up the stairs, late at night, because, you're allowed to go and come as you please. But you start walking up your building hallway and you think, oh my gosh, every step I take is echoing for like 4 or 5 second delay in here, and it gets very loud. And then we have the noise issue. So the walls are not thin, but you will find that they echo a great deal. You're required to follow those 2 ordinances. And then, of course, it's your apartment to maintain. So taking out your trash, doing the dishes, keeping everything neat and orderly, as I'm sure you all want to do anyway, and there will be no issues. Now, there is one other possibility. And one of the buildings in Florence University of the Arts group of campuses has, thank you for attending, Doctor, I appreciate it. One of them has some dorm-style living, a floor dedicated to living space. It's on Via Ricasoli, number 26, if you want to look at it on the map. So they have a whole beautiful floor dedicated to lodging. Again, depending on your requests, because they may be trying to match up certain roommates, they may be trying to accommodate a single room request, they are going to do their best to honor it. So it may not be one of the private apartments that you see. It may actually be one of the buildings where you have class and your whole floor is dedicated to housing. And it's brand new, and it's been refurbished, and there's internets, and there's everything. But it might be 2 to a room, 4 if they have a larger room. I think there's one corner room that's quite large that might have multiple beds, 5 beds or something in it. But that might be if we get a request and say, we're really trying to accommodate as many people as we can. And it has some single rooms. And then there are common kitchens, many bathrooms on this landing, this particular floor. And then you would come and go again as you please, but you're checking in sort of with the front desk. But it is very much you're living on your own still. It just happens to be in a building that is owned by Florence University of the Arts. It also happens to be where one of their restaurants is, and I'll be getting to that shortly. So there might be that possibility. I'm calling it the dormitory style life, because it's a little bit more like a whole dorm floor. And as we said, they'll do their best to accommodate the roommate in the single bedroom request, but they're absolutely not guaranteed. So, Snow, could you advance us on from there so we can... There we are. Now, I was mentioning before you're going to get an ID card when you arrive, and it's going to have some, what they call units on it. It's going to be FUA. First thing you need to know is you have to have it. They're going to give it to you on a lanyard, and you have to have it with you every time you enter a building. Because like anything, there's security. And so you'll be getting building codes to punch in sometimes, but you always have to have your ID with you. And your ID, they'll give it to you on the orientation day, the day after you arrive. The ID could set off an alarm, so always make sure you have it when you're going to class, not to your apartments unless you live in the building, the dorm style one I was talking about. But they also have loaded a number of units on there. And those units you can actually redeem for meals at only 2 restaurants. And they're both owned, managed, and operated by Florence University of the Arts. They are Gonzo, which is on Via dei Maci, which is further east, in the city. And it is more for the aperitivo time, which is maybe a pre-dinner and then dinner menus. not really lunch. Fedora, which is actually in that Via Ricasoli building that I told you. And it's more of a pastry and brunch shop. So breakfast and brunch would be there. And you can go into any of those anytime and redeem units for meals. Now you have your own kitchen, so you can cook whenever you want. You can be as independent as you want. You can buy your own food. And by the way, as far as the living experience that I was wanting to highlight, the kitchen, believe it or not, and cooking for yourself is a wonderful gateway into entrance into the country and culture, because you're standing in line at the grocery stores, which are small ones scattered all over, and you'll learn the ones that are near your apartment. You're standing in line there, you're using some Italian, you're making change with the people, you're, going to your shop for your favorite, bakeries for different things, and you're coming home and you're cooking. And so now you're really living like a Florentine. But you can also eat at Fedora and at Ganzo. Now, every meal gets a different number of units. So when people have said, okay, how many meals is this worth? It's not a plan like we might have at USF. You get 3 breakfasts and so many lunches and this dinner. It depends what you order. So going in and ordering a cappuccino and a pastry for breakfast might be 1 unit. But you go out tonight to Ganzo and you have a 13-course meal, you're going to use a lot of units and it's not going to last as long. But you can always add more units to it if you wanted by paying at the student life office. Say, give me X euro worth of units, and they'll keep adding them. I do encourage you to eat out at the local restaurants. They're doing still the takeaway food, but enjoy the local cuisine. Cook for yourselves if you like, and then enjoy Fedora and Ganzo. The other thing, and if you want to flip through some slides now, I put up some beautiful pictures. You can see there Ganzo and Fedora, but some really wonderful shots of these are first class gourmet dining. So when you see what the actual prices are, you're thinking, wow, that can be a little costly, but you're getting some of this paid for. And you can just go through some of these quickly. So this is one you might want to stop. Here's another place you can use units. In Via Ricasoli 26, in addition to Fedora, and in addition to where some of you may be living in that kind of dorm style, they also maintain a hospitality suite that has sauna, that offers pedicures, that does massage and manicure, and you can redeem units for that. So you say, I don't want to use my units on meals. I want to pamper myself with a beauty treatment. Well, you can use your units for that. You simply have to go online with your MyFUA portal. You make an appointment, and they say, your appointment for a spa therapy is tomorrow at 12:30. So very simple to do. But it does also give you a chance to experience, again, some really genuinely first-class hospitality treatment. And that's one of the major schools that they have, is hotel and hospitality management. So you can advance now. I just want to make sure everyone understands that. Again, we're here to answer questions as we move on. So dining and culture and the facilities. So we've, I think, seen some other photos. I just want you to glance through these and enjoy it. They do have a gym, by the way. They have a gym that's operational, and we're going to see what they're putting on as their COVID restrictions and how we need to do that. They'll inform us of that, how many people can go in and this sort of thing, and when it's cleaned and so forth. But they do have a gym that they maintain. And the next slide, Snow, says, okay, so let's go on to communication. As I have some, again, I want you to read. At some point, I hope, if you haven't been reading along all of these slides, I'd like you to read them again. We're going to send out the link. But I want to condense, as I said in the beginning, what I think are the really salient points that weren't covered either in writing on these slides or in your general orientation. So technology and communication. Yes, you have Wi-Fi in your apartment. The school has Wi-Fi. Your first day there, by the second day, you'll have gotten all your router codes, all your passwords, everything established. But we also, our office would like everyone to have a cell phone that we can reach you by. So I dial a number and you answer it. I hear your voice. We can communicate in real time. We may not use it all the time. We may never use it. But for safety purposes, we want everyone to have a cell phone. as an agent of the university, I can't tell you it's best to rent a phone, it's best to this, it's best to that. But what I can say is that historically, and the way the trends have been, most students and faculty, and I have found this myself, is I bring my unlocked phone. So you have to make sure you have an unlocked phone. And the reason I highlighted it is to draw your attention. You can go to Italy, purchase a SIM card, and I'll give you an example. I purchased one for €35. And right now they're close to parity. The euro is a little bit stronger, but I'd say it's close to $36, $37. And I bought a SIM card that lasted me the entire trip, had plenty of, I could do so much talking, texting, everything I could want to do for basic communication. However, I would call your own cell phone company and compare the costs. And you have very important to understand what their charges are when you tell them you're going to be international. I'd be quite surprised. I say this to you as much as the associate director as I am your friend. I'd be very surprised if they could match that price of getting a SIM card in Italy. But the SIM card in Italy is going to be an Italian phone number, and that's perfectly fine. I would call the cell phone company, I would compare the rates, but I'm pretty sure you're going to find purchasing a SIM card when you arrive is going to be the least expensive way to have a phone that works. Also, and this is a phone number that we want to end up putting in your contact information while abroad questionnaire. However, you can also use the social media to communicate, you can do the WhatsApps, all of those things that you might use. And you can give that information to us too. But safety purposes, while you're there, calling each other about what to buy for dinner or texting each other, you'll probably want a phone. Likely you'll want to bring your own phone because, as everyone tends to say, my whole life is on this phone. All the phone numbers I need, all my best, apps, everything is on there. And I think you'll do very well. And we can assist you when you arrive in getting a SIM card. They're really, if you know Florence, you go by the Duomo, there are a couple of streets there where they're almost standing outside competing for business. And they're all about the same, 30, €35. Our faculty do that. So I would contact them, but here's what I would like you to do in addition to that, because we have to think not only about when you arrive, but remember when I said if anything goes wrong while you're traveling, your travel's interrupted. God forbid for anyone anywhere, but it's interrupted. And you need to reach us. You need to call and say, I need to get through to FUA, or I need to get Jim on the phone because I'm stuck here in Bora Bora and my luggage went to Honolulu and I don't know what's happening. I need help. You can't do that. You haven't even arrived in Italy to buy a SIM card yet. So while I resist telling you to spend a little bit of money with your personal cell phone company to make sure that it is active before you leave, active for international calls before you leave, I really strongly encourage you to do that. You'll hear outrageous fees, $1.10, to open a line, and then 80 cents a minute, all kinds of expensive things. Oh, and Snow put a good comment. If you buy a SIM card, really do not use your US SIM card. Correct, you'll have to take it out. You'll need an unlocked phone. But you're not going to have that SIM card yet. So I encourage you, make sure you have an active cell phone before you leave, and just ask your cell phone provider, let's make up it's X Mobile, I'm not saying anyone. I'm going to be traveling to Italy, I need my phone active, I need to know what the rates are, but it'll then like to be your phone number that's working. And then you'll be able to get service while you're traveling. So sure, you're in New York, it's going to work, because that's probably in your plan here for roaming. But what if you arrive in Rome and something happens? You need to call someone. I don't want you running around looking for a SIM card, though you could probably buy one in the airport, but I'd rather you have the ability to make a phone call or two, and then we can reach you back, etc. But after that day or so, I would run out and I would get a SIM card. And I say that as much working here as anything else. We want, before you leave, if you activate your cell phone, which I strongly encourage, we want to know that number. This is the number that if I dial while you're in transit, I could reach you somehow, or you could reach the office. You have a working phone. Then when you get the SIM card, you must immediately send me the new number. So we have that in our records. And that's the number we'll use to try and call you. So I hope everyone is clear on that. Then, a couple of other quick things to be mindful of. You bring your laptops. Make sure they have a built-in converter. Most of them do, but I would make sure with the manufacturer the converter is going to drop down the power. Italy is on 220 volts, not 120 like the United States. So if you plugged an appliance in and there wasn't an automatic converter built in, or you don't have converters and adapters to go into the wall, you would burn the unit out because their electricity is much higher. But you can get converter and adapters at any nearby place, which if you want to bring the hair dryers and all of that, you can buy them at any nearby department store that in their luggage area, a Walmart, a Home Depot. I have one I think I got from Home Depot. It was about $13.98 or something plus tax. You don't have to buy anything fancy. I would also recommend buying one that's worldwide, because sometimes when you get them, they say this has a plug for Europe, this has a plug for this. I'd get one worldwide, because hopefully this is continuing your travels around the world, or is the start of you becoming a world traveler. So every time you're going to go to another country, or for all I know, your honeymoon's going to be in Japan, you don't go buying converters for every country. You're going to just buy one that's good worldwide. But check with the laptop company, make sure the converter is built in. Then all you'll need is the adapter, because their prong configuration into the wall is not going to match ours. So if you don't have adapters, you're not going to be able to plug anything in. So, next slide, please, Snow. And then we can talk about technology and other things. Here are some money tips, extremely important. So I'm going to go, you're going to read all of this for me, please. But I'm going to tell you the breakdown of it. Before you leave the United States, please do this for Jim. Before you leave the United States, have in cash on your person, because when we talk about safety, I'm rarely going to just ever tell you to have cash on your person. But before you leave the USA, have 100 US dollars on your person. Also have about the equivalent, so say 85, 100 euros, something like that. Our reason is if we look back in the orientation and we start tracing our travel, you'll look back and you'll replay this and you'll say, okay, here he says take a cab. And here he says this, and here, well, you need cash. Will they take credit cards? Probably. But make sure you have some cash. You never know when a card line is going to go bad, or they don't have connectivity, or something happens. Or they simply, the cab driver says, I'm sorry, it doesn't work. I need cash. I don't want you running around looking for an ATM to get cash. I just like you to have some cash on you. The other thing is, suppose we just have a long layover in JFK, and for some reason your credit card isn't working. We're going to talk about accessing money in a minute. The cash is there to say, you know what? I'm dying of thirst. I want a bottle of water and a slice of pizza, and I need money for that. So have some cash on you. Almost think of it as like emergency. The same for your return. You never know. Delays here and delays there. Someone says the credit card machine doesn't work. It's down, blah, blah, blah. You don't have to worry. You have a little cash with it. But I pretty much follow the same processes. I won't ask anyone here to be personal. I'll be personal myself. I rarely pay with a lot of cash. If you looked in my pocket now, I probably have about under $30 in cash. I pay most things with my credit card. But when I go overseas, I have to contact the issuing bank. I must tell them the dates that I'll be overseas, the dates they will see activity, and the countries that I'll be in. So I say, I'm leaving this date, I'm returning that date. Well, you're certainly going to see activity in Italy. But if you suspect you might be, if we are allowed at some point to be traveling more freely, any place you suspect, we'll know and we'll update you if we're allowed to do more travel. But let's say anywhere you even suspect you'd be, you tell them dates you'll be overseas, and you tell them the country or countries that you'll be in. You should write down all the numbers, front, back, account number, expiration date, verification code on the back, name as it appears on the card, 800 number to contact, everything in the back and front of that card. Or you can do what I do, which is cheat. I lay my credit card down in a copier, or I take a picture of it, front and back. Now, I take those numbers with me. And I keep them separate from the card, because if anything happened to the card, it's stolen, the wind kicked up, it blew out of my hand and went in the Arno River, I have the numbers somewhere else, and I can immediately enact credit card company, cancel the card, it was stolen or it was destroyed, it fell down the sewer, I don't want it tampered with. Also leave those numbers at home. The same person you've left all the important phone numbers, copies of your passport, all the things we're going to tell you to make copies of and bring with you, you'll leave at home. This is another thing to leave at home. Copy of your credit card, or if it's an all-in-one card, like an ATM and debit card, and that's what you plan to use. But my theory I follow here, and I do in Italy, is when I want to make a larger purchase, certainly, I pull out my credit card. The bank's been notified. They know I'm going to be overseas these dates. They know they're going to see activity. I also lock in the international daily exchange rate for that purchase time, but that isn't as critical. I'm not fumbling with a lot of cash because I don't want anyone to be worried about what am I going to do with this money in my pocket. I could get my pockets picked. We'll talk about safety shortly. So I never have a lot of cash on me anywhere. But I do need some cash, because I look at one of you and I say, why don't we sit down here and just have a cappuccino? And it might be €1. Well, I don't even know if the man who owns the place will take the credit card for €2. I don't know if it's going to be working. So some cash that's on you. And then when I need to replenish, as I run out of cash, I go to an ATM machine and I access it that way. So that's another place you need to remember. Contact the bank. If it is not the same one, or you have a different card, like you're not always using your debit or ATM service one, you have a separate credit card, any company, you contact them and tell them that you'll be overseas, and you tell them you'll see activity and not to freeze the account. And that's how I'd follow it. Now, of course, you have to make sure that you have a way to access your online account and make sure you're getting your balance paid and so forth. But that's the best way to proceed. Have some money on you before you go. About $100, about €100. So the cabs, the pizza at the airport, all that stuff you don't have to worry about running around and trying to find. The next is you have any form of payment that you're going to make. And yeah, thank you for flipping the slide too. You're going to have a credit card, ATM card, way to access your money. You're going to contact the issuing bank. You're going to tell them that they're going to see activity in Italy, certainly, anywhere else you think you might be, not to cancel the card, that that's legitimate activity. And prior to departure, you'll write down all of the numbers front and back, or as I tell you I do, I just copy the card front and back. You take copies with you. You leave them separate from the actual card itself. And you leave a copy with a trusted individual loved one back home in case you need to reach someone. All of it's been destroyed. So copies are everywhere. Okay. The other thing about accessing, and we'll talk a little bit more about safety, but accessing the money, being very, very careful, as I know you all are here, not to have your pins written down, things like that where people get sold, but you might want to write them down back home in case someone needs a verification or a password or something. You'll know them, but maybe your mom hasn't memorized all of your pins or something. So if we have to act on a stolen or lost or destroyed card. And again, we can cover lots of this later on. Snow, could you flip to the next slide, please? Okay, so again, I want you to scan all of this and the next slides that we have, but I'll condense safety into a few key points. The first is, if you look statistically, and again, this is, usually when we do this in person, I'll issue a group apology to the group and say, I don't mean to offend, or I'm not referring to anyone specifically, and I certainly am not talking about intercultural differences. So this is meant to be factual and protective, not to be commentary about better or worse, just differences. If you were to Google the crime rates in Florence, so I hope you've all accepted my blanket apology. You would find that the crime rates in almost every kind of crime except one are lower than on almost any college campus in the United States. So that's accounting for capital crimes like murder, rape. It's accounting for sale of drugs, almost less than any college campus in the United States. boil down to saying Florence is an extremely safe city. But we do have one area where, because it is highly touristed, their crime rate is very high. And the general term they'll say is pickpocketing. A better way that the law enforcement agencies talk about is crimes of opportunity. And crimes of opportunity generally are, yes, having your purse stolen, your pockets picked, but it could also include all the little things we don't think about. Cameras being stolen, things that are left on tables. So when you think about your time in Florence and saying, how on guard do I have to be? It's really always with your personal belongings. So if you are able, when we get to a more unlocked down state, sit at a counter or sit in a restaurant or an outdoor cafe, people have said, I just put, as I usually do, my camera, my purse, everything on the ground. And believe it or not, somehow it's been stolen. So you have to be very careful with everything that you're carrying. Pickpocket crime rarely in Florence will carry any violence with it. It's stealth. The thieves operate in stealth. So if they don't go unnoticed, then they obviously have to move location. They have to go unnoticed. But it is not generally involving any physical or harmful contact with your person. It's getting things, getting inside your purse, your backpacks. The backpack should be a front pack. You should never have things, gentlemen, in the back pocket. I right now have my wallet in my back pocket, but never when I go to Florence. I have everything in my front pockets. I'm not carrying a lot of cash. And then I always have the numbers of any credit cards or something. Remember, I've brought them with me and they're separate. They're back at my apartment and they're also at home. So I can act if anything is stolen. But I think making yourself an extremely hard target is the biggest thing that dissuades the professional pickpocket, to use the plain word. So, ladies, if you're walking with your purse, you would have it over your neck, not just around your shoulder. You would have the clasp where it opens against your body and not showing visibly, so someone's very, very talented, manipulative fingers could get inside of there, take something without you even noticing it. You'd never leave your cameras, your purses, your laptops, your backpacks on the ground unattended while you're eating, or while you go over to a beautiful monument and say, why don't we all take a picture in front of this and ask someone to just share it through Facebook? We'll all get because by the time you've left something down, believe me, someone's going to come back and say, my camera was just stolen, my phone was stolen, something's happening. So you want to make yourself an extremely hard target. But while we have said their crime rates and their incidence of more capital crimes are extremely low, there have been incidents. There have been incidents where we have had people who are victims of the date rape drugs, who have not been careful about following our orientation policies, about going out in groups. You're certainly safe day and night, but I would always recommend at night being with a group, not leaving anyone behind, not saying there were 5 of us when we started, who's missing. So just helping and supporting the buddy system and looking out and looking after one another. But I guarantee you, when you go there, you will suddenly be completely enchanted with the beauty of the city. You'll find yourself feeling extremely safe because you are extremely safe. But it's at the moment you let your guard down and you think, I think everything is fine here, I have nothing to worry about, that something, God forbid, could happen. So you need to be extremely, extremely conscious of that at all the times. You need to always have a fully charged cell phone when you're out. You need to have, we'll be issuing you an emergency card. You need to have that with you constantly, which has 24/7 numbers. So if you find yourself in a compromised position, you'll be able to call for assistance. And as I say, you need to pretty much follow the buddy system and be alert, have common sense. The main thing we try to tell students is not to allow yourself in a sensory way to be compromised. You go out, you have a glass of wine, maybe another, and you're still fine, you're aware of your surroundings. Of course, my blanket apologies in place don't mean anyone in this group or anyone from the past or who knows in the future. But it's when the traveler or the student says, I'm a little fuzzy now. Maybe I've not followed the alcohol misuse policy that you read about. Maybe I'm not quite myself, And it's at that moment, it's a local pretending to be helpful, or it's something worse where somebody says, oh my gosh, I woke up and I was robbed, or God forbid something worse than that. So we want to avoid those near occasions. And the best way is to follow the policies, follow everything you heard in the general orientation, and particularly because I promised you at the beginning, what I'm here to do is give this special relevance to Florence is, please, the pickpocket crime, I hate to say it, but it's rampant. It really is rampant. And the pickpockets themselves could almost be more classified as sleight of hand magicians than pickpockets. I mean, you'd almost think they could take your shoes off your feet and retie them, putting them back on, and you wouldn't even know it. They're a professional. So don't think I'm an experienced traveler in this. All you need to do is make yourself a hard target. And then I see a lot of comments coming up. Friends lose their phones to pickpocketers. Absolutely. In fact, well, I saw that comment that Megan just put up. Here's an extraordinary thing. We had somebody one summer. I'm not saying this is going to happen. I'm just telling this to amuse you. We had someone who did have their phone stolen, and a local chased after him. The person dropped the phone, and the girl thought the phone was gone. She just ran after her. She was scared. And the local called. Now, of course, he has the girl's phone. Looked through the phone and found her home number. The local owned a leather shop, actually. And he found her number, and he found my number, my cell phone number. And he called both of them. He says, I hope you speak a little, my English isn't very good, but actually said, the girl who lost this phone lost it in front of my store and actually called and returned it. So, honest people live out there, but we can't always count on that. So I also saw Liliana put in pickpocketing and no backpacks. How do you recommend? No, I think you can have a backpack, but I would make it a front pack. I would have the backpack around the front of you. I would carry it like it's your newborn. That's what I would say. I would carry it around like it's your newborn. And I just wouldn't leave things unattended. And one of the things that when we have more time and it's a little bit freer form and can be more interactive, that I say in the live orientations is none of this is meant to frighten you. It's meant to make you alert. So if you're on a train and you think everything is fine, not to suddenly go to sleep on the train and say everything will be fine when I wake up. Even though everyone around you looks well dressed and very upscale. It's never to say you don't need a restaurant and put your things down. Well, you can't carry them around. Or Liliane's question about where do you put your books? Well, you take them with you. Of course, you have your backpack. But you wouldn't want to leave it down anywhere and walk away from it just to take a nice picture. And you just keep yourself and you keep yourself sharp and your wits about you, and you will be very fine. And John says anti-theft backpacks good. I've seen very good reviews about them. You're talking about some of them that have the multiple pockets. They're hard to get in. The idea with all of these and the purses too, for anyone who's bringing a purse with them, and why not? Florence is a beautiful place to be fashionable because it's one of the fashion capitals of the world, and it's a beautiful place to buy things too, by the way. So I'm not trying to spend your money, but leather and gold are their famous things for centuries that they sell. So you'll go and fall in love with beautiful leather goods, purses, jackets, all kinds of things. And you should enjoy them to your budget's abilities. But the purse, is just something that everyone is walking around with, as long as you're careful. When we think about the safety and the ATM machines, only go to ATM machines where you see locals going. If you don't see a line of people who are dressed up with their briefcases, who are standing in line, the lady with her shopping bags, they're using it, it's good to use. You'll also see some at major banks. I saw someone put up BNL Bank. Some with major banks who you can even walk in, so you have to be inside the place to get to the ATM machine. I like using those because obviously you're going to be guarded and protected all the time. Yeah, the zipper backpacks, have seen those yet? They're very good. Thanks, Megan. Those are good comments. So those are very good ones. I agree. Can you flip our slides? No, let's see what else we have while we're... And here's what we were saying too, the things about are really the inverse. You don't want to stand out. You don't want to, again, I always say I never want to squelch anybody's desire to express themselves, because I believe that's our God-given human right. But you might want to think twice or even thrice about saying, I'm going to wear this shirt that makes me stand out. I'm going to wear this shirt that expresses a political or a person or something view. I don't tell you not to do that. So I'm here recorded. I'm never saying don't do that, but I am saying think about it. Think about you're not at home, and there may be some different viewpoints to that. And hopefully, from the beginning of the presentation, you saw where I need to learn a little bit about the country I'm going, and maybe what some of their thoughts are on certain things. So I never tell anybody don't do this and don't do that, but I do encourage you to look into it because sometimes the wisdom is we may not want to put certain things on us. And even though that may be not who we are, it's something to consider. If it's making a strong statement, you say, maybe someone won't take that in the way I mean it. And I don't know about everything here, even though I've studied up on it. So it's just something to think about. Again, are not going out alone, being very careful about the alcohol misuse policy. A lot of this is really been covered in the general orientation. So I know you've all done that and passed the quiz, but one thing we often don't think about are the local animals. Now, Italians love their dogs. So they're all, I'm sure, vaccinated and so forth. But, if you see an unfamiliar animal, it's just something we always say. Read these, please. It's not to, as I say, not to frighten anybody. It's to make everyone think very cautiously and very sharply about their time abroad and to avoid near occasions that we won't, then that way we won't have any incidents happen. Can you go to the next slide, Snow? I think we may be closing in some things. The risk and safety. Now, again, this is what maybe the third time you're seeing it in this presentation. You are going to be given the 24/7 lines for FUA and for USF. You have them here. They're going to be sent to you on a printed sheet with a lot of other useful numbers shortly. You're going to be encouraged to print them out and have them with you at all times. And we're even going to send you a little emergency card that's going to be a little card that you would just fold over, and you can even laminate it. You can leave those numbers at home. But I would love for them to be on your person. If I could demand it, I would demand it. You'd always have these numbers with you at all times. And again, this is why the working cell phone. So there is a cab strike, you don't know what to do. There is something else. God forbid you've fallen and hurt yourself. I mean, I'm speaking from experience, and I hope to God it never happens to anyone anywhere. But yeah, student is walking, just played, down the street, done some shopping, really, really, really hurt themselves, and there's no one on the street. Well, they don't want to start shouting. Get to your phone and call for help, and someone will be able to help you. So always, always have those things on there. Next slide, Snow. I know I'm trying to do some of this quickly and not run out of time for questions. Okay, can't stress enough, you have to complete your Canvas orientation so we can register you. Please go back and you'll get reminders from us. Oh, will you get reminders from us to finish your application as soon as you can? And then financial issues, please have them in order. Visit financial aid, let us know what we can do to assist in getting your financial things in order. Very important. And is that our last one, Snow? And I've left at least 20 minutes. Contact information, so you have this. Who to reach for business issues. And again, you can always write to me and I can route it to the same place. And then Snow, who's good enough to be our hostess and monitor here, the Gateway office, which probably a lot of you had visited prior to our USF lockdown, but our Gateway office and that email, we will always be able to connect with each other. If someone does not know an answer, we will direct you to the right person. And you see, we put financial aid and their number because it's incredibly important. They're a very key player in everything. These are contact emails, which you'll also find on the website for our faculty directors. So particularly if you have class questions, contacting Dr. Beasley, Professor Katz, Dr. Otter, Dr. Merkin, Dr. Bishop, Dr. Ville, please contact them. They may have lots of advice for you and things, but I really strongly encourage you, if you have questions about this or getting acquainted, contact your professors who will be on site there too. Is that our last one, Snow? Did I make it to the end? And questions. Okay. Snow, tell me how we want to monitor questions and how we want to do them, because I've lost track of the chat here.
Yeah, let me scroll back up to the chat. So, and I know you addressed a few of them. I'm going to unshare my screen.
While Snow's doing that, let me reiterate, this is not, we've met, we're not speaking again. We've met, and you can write me 100 questions right after this orientation. I don't care. I want your questions. I want to assist you. We can email, we can phone call, we can do everything except all the little apps on your phone. Let's say we have our email and our phone, and we can communicate. So students and parents, this isn't, you finished orientation, goodbye, good luck. We're not leaving tomorrow. We have lots of time to answer things.
Awesome. Okay, so I see one from the very beginning, and I think you may have addressed it to the student before we started.
Mm-hmm.
But they said in Oasis, my cost for the program is at $7,000 instead of the $5,463.
Yes.
Can you elaborate on that one? Because I'm sure a lot of other students probably are having the same issue.
Very good. And I didn't have a chance to go into it very much because I was wanting not to use up as much time as I actually did. We are going to register you in Oasis. So you're registered in Oasis. The minute we click save on your registration, your tuition comes up. Now the tuition comes up automatically because speed of light with the computer. We will be waiving that tuition. So what you'll see is the application of those individual tuition fees. You know how tuition is broken out. And shortly, this is going to be after May 1 for sure, you're going to see item by item those things waived and decline the balance back down to what it was. But there is that point in there where you get this shock going, is that some extra cost I didn't know about? Absolutely not. If it's that cost, if it's tuition, then you're going to see it disappear. But whereas entering you in the classes happens at the speed of light, the tuition waivers are a manual process. So our friends in the office of the cashier have to go in line by line and remove each of those. So it doesn't happen at the speed of light. They do a fantastic job, but it does take time. Good question.
Awesome. Okay, this one's a very niche question, but Megan said, for the COVID testing, is the 48 hours prior for the COVID test, one before you leave the U.S., is that 48 hours prior to departure or to arrival? And I know it seems very niche, but there could be 10, 12 hours of travel time. So
thank you. You think of your boarding time. You've been tested within 48 hours of getting on that plane. That's the way it's been described. 48 hours prior to your departure.
Thank you. Perfect. All right. Let's see. Okay. Do you know if they can pay for a second test in Rome if somehow they were to get a false positive? I'm going to just say bring any vaccination records as well, just in case. Yes. But worst case scenario, do you know anything about that, Jim?
The worst case scenario is they do have the rapid test that's there, but they may have other ones. And if we were in need of that, and I don't have an exact answer for you, unfortunately, there are testing at the airport. So if that one for some reason failed, we'd act on it immediately on what the authorities told us. So they said, it's a false test, and I'm sorry, but you have to self-isolate. They'll assist you. You'll have a phone. You'll call us. We'll see what we can enact. But I don't know if they have any percentage of people who've shown up and had false positives or how they're dealing with that. But there could be. So again, I'd always be prepared with a credit card to be able to pay for things and some source of money in case you need to do something immediately on the spot and a credit card wasn't available.
Awesome. We had one student asking about a specific antigen test kit. So I just want to go ahead and say, call your airline about any specifics when it comes to certain tests, brands, kits, any of that stuff. Talk to your airline. Would you say that's right, Jim?
I would say that's one good source, and the other is if you contact, and I'm just using one, I'm not, promoting anything, but if you did say the nearest place to me is CVS has a walk-in clinic, to make sure you're telling them, I need a test that I can prove, that I get paperwork and prove is the molecular, and just take that printed thing out with me with you or show them on your phone. It's supposed to be the antigen test to show negative so I can get on a plane. And they've probably gotten a lot of questions about that or have something in their database that says, well, then you need test B or test C or A or whatever it is, and make sure that they know that. And the other, of course, would be your airline. The thing that sometimes is about the airlines is, again, I love airlines and I love traveling by plane. My whole family does. But I never know. Sometimes, you get, some people maybe a little more informed than others. So you may get a good answer, but, I think the health professionals, but the airline is also a good source too. Just make sure you're speaking to a live representative and not just the website, which maybe wasn't updated. And again, regrets, because these things are changing, sometimes daily. So we're going to keep you informed. Again, I have to say, keep checking your email. Keep checking your email.
Awesome. Some students were asking about the PowerPoint and the recording. So yes, we'll send that out to you. Shoot us an email if you're like dying for it right away, but Jim and I will send it out. I might put it on YouTube. Just keep an eye on your emails and you'll be good.
Yes. Keep eyes. Oh my gosh, never ignore email.
Awesome. Okay, another student was asking if they want a single room, should they still put names down for like other people to room with?
They can. Good point. They can.
Okay. But you don't have to do that if maybe you don't know anybody going or you want to make new friends.
Exactly.
It's a housemate preference. So I think it's like you still have your single room, but you're requesting who you want to be living with in your general space. So I would still put it down.
Yes.
Yes,
absolutely. And you might even note that because there's a place where you can do the actual language entry. So you'd say, I want a single room. I'd like the other apartment mates to be, so it's very clear.
Awesome.
But then make sure they put you down too. Everyone has to be in agreement. As silly as it sounds, if there were 10 of you, it'd be a really tall order to fill. But if there were 10, there should be 9 names, minus, or 9 names other than your own on each person's application.
Awesome. Is there a curfew for the city right now?
Presently, there is. Now, I'm hesitating to answer, but the last thing that had come through were the curfews were still in place up until, I believe, 10 p.m. Italy had just downgraded, which is a good thing, from a orange zone. There are 4 zones, the white, the yellow, orange, and red, and that's ascending. Had downgraded from an orange zone to a yellow zone. So things are loosening up. I don't have immediately at my fingertips what's in each zone, but presently they had that. They are expecting, and again, this is nothing promissory, but they are expecting that things might loosen some more. So again, in addition to the immigration things, have your proof of vaccination if you've been vaccinated. They may say, gee, if you had that, you could apply for this and you could travel to France. But I can't say that for sure. We just want you to be prepared.
Awesome. They're also asking how many rooms the apartments will have. That's going to vary, right? And we'll know in the next 10 days or so for our summer A students where your apartments will be.
Exactly. I'll actually have physical addresses. And then if you want to see that I get so-and-so who I requested as a roommate, you just have to scan up and down the addresses and go, okay, there's my address. I'm on Via de' Maci number 18, and so is Bob, because they're all same gender, and they'll be from the group. There is, by the way, a possibility that there'll be another student, same gender, but, it might have been a odd number out, and they said, oh, well, now we need a place for Bob and Frank and Ted or something, and they said, they're from another school. Well, Ted got put in with some USF people, but everyone's a student there.
Perfect. And if there are no single rooms available, students will be refunded their $400, right?
Good question. Absolutely.
Perfect. All right, phone plans. So if students, if their phones are locked, let me see. Would it be okay to only turn on my data or phone services on the days I need it? Or what does that look like?
Well, usually you can. And the other thing is, and we'll be sending out some paperwork with this, there are phone rental companies, and their rates are pretty good too. And I'll send you some information on that. Just, again, I don't endorse it. The school sends it, and they're very popular in Italy. One, I think, is Pixel Wireless. We'll send their information. You could think about, I'm going to just rent a phone for €50 for a month and then pay for 2 more weeks. Then I have a phone. We must have the number, though. We must have the number. It's safety, safety, safety.
Yeah, I think that's the important thing is we need to be able to contact you at all times. So whatever you plan on doing, let us know what you're doing and how to contact you.
Absolutely.
Perfect. All right, I had another student say, so to buy a SIM card in Italy, would I have to get a codice fiscal beforehand? Sejal, I don't know what this is. Do you mind clarifying, or I can do a quick Google on that? When I've gone to Italy, all I had to do was present my passport, I think, pay $30. My phone was unlocked. So if you can clarify that question a little bit more, I'm not 100% sure what that means.
I don't know if
And then
anything
we can
to
come back
answer
to this
what
one.
I don't know if anything that's required other than, again, as Snow said. And by the way, those of you I didn't forget to mention, Snow was a student on this program a few years ago. So
Yes,
she
I
has great
was.
familiarity and is another great resource, as our professors are and everyone. But having Snow work with us is tremendous because she's gone through a study abroad experience. And she happens to have gone through this study abroad experience. So doubly good for all of you listening, as another resource. But I've never encountered anything. All I've needed to do is really go there with a method of payment, sometimes with my passport, make sure the phone is unlocked, and then I purchase a SIM card.
Perfect. Okay, so I just did a quick Google, Jim. This student knows way more about Italy than we must. So that's your Italian identification code or like a tax number. Nope, you just need your passport. Bring that.
Yeah, la persona codice. No, you don't need that. No. It's not a national ID number. No, not at all.
You can tell I didn't learn a ton of Italian when I was over there. So awesome. All right. So some great comments about backpacks, pickpocketing. Let me keep going through here. Okay. Is there a specific kind of COVID test? PCR, antigen, anything like that?
I wish I knew more about it. I would go again with the ones that says the antigen test. However, it was phrased in the email. I can go try to get to that screen now myself, but I have to put in a quick password.
Oh, and I realized I skipped like 2 or 3 questions. So
Well, that's
if y'all are looking at it, I'll get back to you guys. Don't worry.
It's the antigen test. I remember I've seen that thing so many times. I'm just having a moment trying to find it. Here it goes. So we have emergency phone and airfare booking. It is directed to immunization, molecular or antigenic test upon arrival in Rome. So I think if the site that the student is looking at, if they can ask the person, is the test I'm getting a negative COVID-19 molecular or antigen test? That's the one to get. And it's
Perfect.
the
Okay.
third bullet point down on the airfare message. And I'll be sending airfare messages again. You're only going to be so tired of hearing from me. You'll say, what does the man do? Like nothing but email us these things day and night.
Okay, so the next question kind of fits in with this. They're saying, well, this one's talking about the PCR test. So again, make sure you're getting the right test done and you're getting like a rapid test. You make sure you're able to get results printed off so that you have them. The test has to be taken within 48 hours. So if you took a test on Monday, but you don't get the results till Friday, and then you leave on Sunday and you're like, I got it on Friday, that's 48 hours. I got my results 48 hours ago. No, the test has to have been done 48 hours beforehand.
Yes, thank you.
And make sure you have the results of that test. I know personally I've been tested and they just called me up on the phone and said, you're good to go. Make sure you get those results in hand so you can take those with you.
Yes, exactly. You'll need to present them at the airport. And again, we have to look at that specific route. We have to be arriving in Rome. Our office is going to contact you if we find anything that is outside of our guidelines. And the guidelines, I must state again, they are not USF guidelines. They have been given to us by the Italian health ministries and authorities, and they've been given to us in English, so we're not interpreting them. But if we don't do that and we're not cleared after the test in Rome, you will have to self-isolate at your cost. So if anyone is listening and said, wait a minute, did I buy a ticket and I didn't leave JFK or Newark Liberty or New York JFK, Newark Liberty or Atlanta Hartsfield, or I'm not landing in Rome, we will be contacting you. You must change your ticket right away for us to be certain you're not going to be in self-isolation, because it'll cost extra to self-isolate. Next question.
All right. Will we be having in-person classes?
Yes. Now, depending on your class, and that's an excellent point, depending on your class, much as has happened at USF on the campus, we might have to observe some social or the physical distancing rules. That would be we have Monday through Thursday class, so maybe group A is going to be in person these days and group B these other days, but it depends on the state of things, and then the rest will be delivered online. It may not be. It may be a class that has 8 people in it. And so everyone will be allowed to go in person all the time and what classroom is available. So be prepared for a mixture, but always you will have access for the delivery of the class in an online format if you're in the other group.
All right. Catherine is asking about excess credit hours and wants to make sure they're not taking the wrong course because of Bright Futures. Catherine, definitely talk to your academic advisor. That's going to be a great question for them. They can confirm that you're not going to be going into excess credit hours and that you're in all the right courses.
Yeah, and please make sure they have with them the actual USF prefix and number. But thank you, Snow's exactly right. All of that information has to be confirmed, should be confirmed on the course selection form by your major academic advisor.
Awesome. All right, Megan, I see you asked kind of a specific question about like living with your friends, and then if you don't get that, can you get a single room? I'm going to say email Jim on that one. So
Yeah.
he can help.
After the fact, if you get the rooming list and you see you're not, once we get the rooming list, here's an easier way to express it. When I get the rooming list, it's final. So if you said, oh my gosh, I didn't get so-and-so, we only got 2 of the 3 roommates we requested, it's not going to be possible. So we could just swap rooms. They're all placed on a lease at that point and payments made according to that. It costs so much money to try and change a lease. So some factor caused it not to work out. But at that point, you wouldn't be able to say, well, if that's the case, then I'll take a single. So it's not in that flexibility of like a hotel that be able to say, well, we do have a couple on the top floor that we could get you in. It won't be possible. The rooming list will be final.
Awesome.
But I guarantee you, every attempt will be made to honor your requests. Every attempt.
Thanks, Jim. All right, Maximilian said, are messenger bags good for Florence? The ones that kind of go around your shoulder and neck? I think those would be great.
Yeah. I think they work very well. I think it's anything that is a close to body that you can keep a hold of and, leave your hands free. It's just a matter of when you're bogged down with things and you're not conscious of your surroundings and aware that a very, very skilled pickpocket can unzip the thing or just put a small slice in the bottom and suddenly things will be coming out. They'll be shopping behind you. Things will be falling out and you won't even know you've been robbed.
Awesome.
So being very careful is the main thing.
All right. Caitlin asked about getting tested at USF. So I did drop some information in the chat from the USF coronavirus website. It looks like on the Tampa campus, they're not doing it, but the county is doing it at University Mall right next door. And then there's information on there about St. Pete and Sarasota Manatee campuses as well. So please check that and then let us know if you need anything.
Good. Wonderful.
Okay. I know we've still got some good questions on the COVID testing. So basically, 48 hours from the time you're departing Atlanta or JFK, if for whatever reason you have like a 10-hour layover from like where you're departing in Tampa to JFK or something like that, call the airline, double check on like the testing requirements, that kind of thing. But just go with 48 hours from your flight leaving the United States. Stick with that. If it's June 26th at 4:50 p.m., you have to get tested by June 24th at 4:50 p.m. or later. So stick with that. Call your airline if you have questions. Let's see. People are wanting to know how many rooms are there within an apartment. So that's really going to vary per apartment, right, Jim?
Yeah. There are going to be some that'll have, 2 bedrooms, and there'll be 2 to a room or a double and a triple. There could be some, and again, this might have happened to accommodate a real specific request. They said, could all 5 or 6 of us room together? So they said, well, we had to put you in a 3-bedroom, 6-person apartment. So you can't, go back and say, I thought it was only going to be 4 or 5. It could be 6. But then you go to 2 baths, larger living area, more larger kitchen space. The other thing I want to mention to you also, so that's going to be harder to predict. They will not all be the same. They also will not almost ever be on the ground floor. So you will be going upstairs. If there is a health issue we need to know about, and it has to be documented, then please contact me as soon as possible. It has to be documented, like, they cannot do stairs. Something or of a nature like that, or, if somebody's recovering from a surgery, God forbid, and says, I cannot do this without an elevator. Because that's hard to accommodate.
Awesome. All right. So it should be pretty much a rapid test. If it's not a rapid test, guarantee you need those results by the time you leave for the airport. So make sure you've got that. Let's see. I'm trying to make sure we hit on every major question since it is about 2:00. So one person said, Snow, do you have any packing tips? Don't overpack. I know that's so hard. You're going to want to be like, oh, this outfit would look so cute at this photo, but then you're never going to wear it again. Be sensible and reasonable about what you're packing. The weather can fluctuate. It can get really hot there, more than you would think. So make sure you're packing clothes for the right weather. They are a little bit more modest and fashionable. So, I would typically go out in leggings and a t-shirt or something. If you can absolutely do that. But if you want to blend in a little bit more, maybe, wear some nice jeans and a nicer shirt or something like that and whatever. Definitely bring good walking shoes.
That's what I was going to say.
You're going to walk so much.
Oh, you will walk like you cannot even believe. And Europeans will walk so much. So I didn't mean to interrupt Snow, but that's the main thing I was going to say. Well, good, comfortable walking shoes.
Yes. I have a backpack, a big 70-gallon backpack or whatever. I love that. If you don't have something like that, I mean, I'm not telling you to go out and drop a bunch of money on one of those, but they can be more convenient for just throwing it on your back and walking versus lugging a suitcase upstairs and things like that. So if you do have a big backpack, I do recommend that. Try not to bring more than one big bag. I know with international flights, typically you can get 2 checked bags or something like that. Lugging that around is going to be such a pain in the butt. You can definitely buy a lot of stuff there that you need, like shampoos and body washes, depending on, your hair type and things like that. But definitely, there's a Lush there. There's an Apple store there. So, if you need a converter for your phone charger and, you want to go get a bath bomb or, your lotion that you like or something, you can buy a lot of stuff there as well. So that really helps cut down on the overpacking. I would say bring if you're a female and you bring purses, I never have purses for just little things. I always am carrying around Hermione's bag full of everything. So bring something smaller so that you can just throw keys, wallet, sunglasses in. That way you're not lugging around everything you own, going to just class or a museum or something like that. But backpacks are your friend. But yeah, definitely don't overpack. I wanted to bring home so much stuff, some olive oil, some other bottles of things. So I ended up leaving some shoes behind because I was I don't have room for this. So the next person in my apartment got a nice pair of white walking shoes. So definitely that's my biggest thing. Don't overpack. If you you can wash your clothes there. You don't need to bring a million things. You don't need to bring that one outfit just because it's going to look so cute on your Instagram. And if you do, reuse the outfit because, again, that's not going to work. Okay, I have one more really good question. And then, Caitlin, I will do a quick screen share and show you how to book a flight or what a COVID-tested flight looks like. But Megan just asked about fire safety and girl after my own heart, that's my first question anytime I go somewhere is how do I get out of this building in a fire? So Jim, can you talk about that?
Well, yeah, all of them have to have, because they're rented buildings, they'll have to have a fire escape route. So where some of them, and you'll know this and it'll make more sense when you see them in person, where they'll have internal stairwells. And so because some of the buildings, including the one that's the dorm style, had to build something external to accommodate the fire code. A lot of them even have little signs up and say this is the fire exit. But if they're not on the first floor, then they will have the exit that you have to take. Even if they don't have an actual fire escape, it'll have a safe exit passage. Now, God forbid there's a fire. You never know where the fire would engulf. So even if you had a fire escape, sometimes it's on the outside of that building, so they have a different route. And it's similar there. But they're all done up to code, and so it does allow for safe exit in case of a flood or of a fire or something, and would be clearly marked. And if anything were unclear, we can always go to the landlord or landlady. They're done actually through a housing agency. So very, very clear on that. But that's a good question.
Thanks, Jim. All right. Everyone, feel free. Like, I know we're over time, so if you do have to leave, feel free to leave. But if you do have any additional questions, or if I missed your question for some reason, feel free to email Jim or I. I'm going to just run through this real quick to, like, look at booking flights. And then I'll keep answering questions as long as we can. But so first rule of thumb, don't do what I did and just type this into your browser. Always use like an incognito window, because now I'm going to start getting really expensive ads for flights to Rome. But I just typed in here Tampa to Rome. Jim, remind me dates that we would look for like summer B. It would be like the 27th.
I'll tell you here in just a moment.
To like
I
August.
don't say anything wrong, because I know June 26th for departure, arrival 27, and we'd be going to August 6th.
Perfect. Okay.
Looking at department. Now, so may I interrupt quickly? I'm sure going to be answering some of the questions here, and I have some other appointments coming up. I just want to thank everybody, and then I'll have to bow out and get to some other appointments. But I'll thank all of you for attending. Thanks Snow for doing such a wonderful job establishing this and chiming in with all of the chat and her own responses, which have been such great help to me. And then please, as I said over and over, this is not, bon voyage or buon viaggio in Italian and happy times, and you are, contact me for anything you might need. We are always here.
Awesome. Thank you, Jim.
Thanks, everyone. Take care. Talk soon. Bye, everyone.
All right. So I just threw in real quick, Tampa to Rome, these dates. So when you're looking at these, for example, I had one come up earlier that was like Dallas. So if you're looking here, Tampa to Miami, but then Miami to JFK, and then JFK to Leonardo da Vinci, which isn't the one you want to go into. We want to go into Fukushima. Is that the one? Maybe. Okay, so bear with me. But this is what you're going to be looking for. So when it says like JFK, that's what you want. So Tampa to Miami and Miami to JFK are all going to be domestic. Then JFK to, I believe it's the Rome Fukushima is this one, FCO. I'll double check on that before we go. So I'm going to select this flight, and then I'm just going to pick a random one coming back. Ignore this one. So then I'm going to say book on this website. So just to double check that it's going to be a COVID tested flight, I want to go to the right one. Thank you, Isabel. Okay. Thank you, Kayla. I was like, I know I'm Fukushima. That's the one I'm supposed to be looking for. So I appreciate it. Okay, I'm going to just skip out of this. Definitely look through like what's included, what's not included. And then, okay, we're going to go basic economy. Sure. Okay, so now it wants me to put in all my information. Okie dokie. Okay, so this is telling us that we do need to show the negative COVID test, but I'm looking for, it's saying it's a COVID tested flight, and I haven't done this on American yet, so I probably shouldn't have just started showing my screen for you guys. But what I would do in this case, just to double check, like we know it's coming from JFK and they're giving us this information about COVID testing, and we can look here a little bit more. But I would specifically call the airline on this one just to double check. But I know, Kayla, you said it's on Delta, and that's the one I was going to show everyone, and then I didn't. So let me go back here because I know there is a Delta one, 100%, that specifically says it's a COVID tested flight. So that's on United. Yeah. Okay. Maybe you all booked the whole flight because I don't see this one, but I'm just going to play with my dates for a hot second, just again, so you all can see what you're looking for. And then if you do have any questions, please just like reach out to us and I'm happy to help everyone. So here we go. Delta. Okay, book with Delta. This is what I was looking for. My Wi-Fi's really slow, everyone. Sure, we'll just take basic. Okay, and I think this one's going through Charles de Gaulle, so this probably also wasn't a good one. You're not going to have to do the quarantine, so feel free to like ignore that for now. Let me go back one more time.
So we can go ahead and book our flights?
Yes, you are good to start booking your flights. You should have received an email from Jim with information, and I will also pull the link in a second to sorry, I can't do two things at once. The town hall we did on flights. And I just want to look at this one. Okay, I'm going to try this one now. This is what I wanted. Okay, so this is specifically coming up saying you selected a COVID-tested flight for international travel without quarantine. This is 100%, you know this flight is good to go. So if you look at the other one that we looked at on American, it didn't have this like specific pop-up. So like I would just call the airline and be like, hey, I need a COVID-tested international flight. If they should absolutely know what you're talking about and be like, yeah, this one's good to go. It could be just the next step. Like I didn't want to go in and put in my contact information and, you know, start paying for it and all that. So it could be on the next step. I'm not 100% sure. But I do know Delta has these pop-ups, these screenshots, whatever. And so on the last one we looked at, so this one's going through Charles de Gaulle Airport in France. You have a layover there. So this one I don't think has the specific COVID tested requirements that you need, or it's not specifically saying like, this is the COVID tested flight that you need to get into Italy. So again, if you book this one through Charles de Gaulle and you're also going through Detroit, so this one has a bunch of layovers, so it doesn't look like a great flight anyways, but call your airline and ask them. Isabel, I don't know if I'm going to be able to confirm for you or not if it's COVID tested. So I would just call your airline and be like, I booked this flight. Here's my flight number, whatever. Is this the COVID tested flight that I need to get into Italy? And they should be able to help you way better than I can. Like, I'll be totally honest with you. I've looked at like American. I've looked at, I think like Lufthansa, and I've looked at Delta. Delta is the main one that has this beautiful pop-up that tells you, you know, what you're doing. The others, I haven't seen that. So I would definitely just call the airline and they can do that. So let me pull our YouTube page real quick. So we did a town hall. Some of you may have been able to make it. We did a town hall like maybe last week or 2 weeks ago. And, oh, this is not the one I want, but I'm going to drop the link in the chat for everyone so you all can take a look at that if you didn't get a chance to. We do answer a lot of questions about the testing, the flights, all of that stuff. So definitely take a look.
Access.
And this is not the one. It should be in here somewhere. Let me go back. Here we go. Okay, so I'm gonna drop that in the chat. Everyone can access that later on. Yeah, and I hope I answered everyone's questions. If you guys do need anything else, please reach out to myself or Jim. Like he said, I did study abroad on this program. It's been a few years now, so things are definitely a little different. But I'm happy to help answer any questions or walk you through anything. But yeah, let me know. Have a great day. Have a great weekend. Good luck on finals, everyone. Enjoy. Have fun. Good luck. You're welcome, Caitlin. Have a good day, Isabel.